Hello and welcome to New Filmmakers Los Angeles. My name is Danny De Lillo. We're here at Emerson College in Los Angeles and I'm here with Talia with her fantastic film Isolations. Let's take a look at the clip.
It's not much longer now, rushing over your ears. You're so much stronger now, but the water's rising fierce. We are only as good as each other.
Talia, happy to have you here in person. This is special. For those that haven't seen your film, tell us a brief synopsis.
Sure. Thank you for having me. Isolations is a dance film made in the very, very early days of the Los Angeles quarantine that is about people trying to find new ways to connect to each other.
And I love that it was shot on 8mm. It was so wonderful to see it shot like that. I'm always in love when I see a film in that.
16mm.
Oh, 16mm. I love a 16mm too.
8mm is great too.
It's a great movie. Anyways, but I really love it. It was from the moment I was like, oh my goodness, like you taking me into it was like very dreamlike. And then I realized this whole experience we've been through feels a bit like a dream, but was reality. Where did the inspiration come for you in turning this kind of topic and this experience into a dance film, and particularly in the way that it was kind of shot as well?
I don't think we had enough time in this sort of new collective trauma experience of quarantine to really sit and think, what is the way that we want to respond to this? There was not a long development process, and that was sort of the inspiration that led to the film. It was, what do we have available? We feel the need to make something, to do anything, because everyone's world has fallen apart. All my filmmaker friends and musician friends, dancer friends, suddenly this was so early that it was just, our next 2 weeks, nothing is happening the way it was planned, but we want to still create, still put something in the world. So with what we have available, what can we make? And we just sort of gathered our resources and responded very immediately in the way that felt right. And I think that that's a rare experience that I've had in filmmaking, where usually there's so much development and thought that goes behind things, and that can lead to great projects and wonderful things, but there's something really nice too about just responding instantaneously to the moment and seeing what comes out of it, and that was what Isolations was.
Well, I mean, everyone in this experience of the world has felt isolation at some point in their life, but this particular time has been much more intense. And I really love that these experiences, these emotions that came out through dance was like expressed behind closed doors, because that's what we're all experiencing, and it was so fascinating to watch these dancers, these fantastic dancers, express themselves of all the emotions that everyone's been going through these windows. I couldn't get my head around it, how magical it was to watch. Did you kind of know that was what you were going to do, like from the get-go? Like, it was going to be sort of like through these sort of through windows where we're going to kind of see the kind of feeling of self-isolation, or did you kind of plan it as you were going along?
That window idea came very early on. I have screenshots of texts that with a cinematographer friend of mine who had spare rolls of 16mm that he'd been trying to get me to shoot on far before quarantine. He was like, I have these, let's use them, and I couldn't think of a project. And then, like I said, we were just using what was available, and I texted him immediately, and he was like, hey, we should make something, but there are all these restrictions. We don't know what we can do. We are scared to go outside. We're scared to leave our houses. We're scared to see our friends. We're wearing masks all the time. How do we make something safely? And the idea of having the window as a barrier, but also as something that can be a frame for dance was something that we landed on very early on, because it was this assurance of safety when there was very little assurance of safety, but it could also be a portal into so many different worlds.
Yeah.
So it started with me just asking friends if they had windows visible from street level that
Love
we
it.
could see into. I mean, it was really just sourced with what we had available. Not everybody in the film is a dancer. Some of them are. I've made dance films, so I have a network of dancers, but it was just, hey, do you have a cool looking window? Can we come scout it? Can we come shoot there?
I love it.
So it was one of those things of restrictions sometimes enable you to think more creatively, and this was really one of those situations.
I mean, you had to really think during this pandemic and be creative in what you can do and what you can't do during this time, but amazing how effective. And I feel like a lot of people really thought about the idea of making a film, making a pandemic film, and I think a lot of people, realize that not what everybody kind of wants, the sort of pandemic narrative, right? But like, I really felt a lot of like, watching your film, it was so nice it was such a great experience to watch, because there's so many, emotions that we have felt and people have felt that everyone's got a different story during this whole period. No, what I loved about watching it is that sometimes I think a lot of our emotions for different people that they've experienced, it's not always through words. And I love that it was shown through dance, that it didn't have dialogue, that it was that kind of, I mean, I know you've made dance films and you were makers, was that something that you were thinking about, that there was completely no dialogue, everything's going to be expressed through just movement?
There's something so visceral about dance and the experience of watching dance, in particular, that you can watch people talk to each other and your body understands that, because you and I are talking just the way that people on screen might be talking, but the way that our bodies move comes from such a deeper part of our brain and our core, and so connecting to other bodies moving in ways that we can relate to hits us in a different place that felt like a place that I was feeling the effects of early quarantine, in my body, and so I wanted to give people, both the people who worked on it and the people who watch it, an excuse to kind of exercise whatever they needed out of their bodies.
Totally.
And try to connect to each other, try to process what was going on. I think that was something that was the biggest loss for me, was just physical connection. I mean, I work in theater, so both in terms of physical theater workshops that I was going to, or I was in rehearsals that were very physical and very bodies in space connecting and building stories together, and then to suddenly lose that for however many months was really painful. And so we wanted to tell that story of bodies being disconnected from each other, not just brains, because we could still talk to each other and we could still do a lot of those things, but there was something missing. Absolutely.
And kind of looking back on the project and what you've experienced, like, how has the reaction been for you sharing this film?
It's been really wonderful. I mean, we made it in such a blur, but people have really, I think every time that I make a project, I sort of want the experience that I wanted to give to the creators to then be able to be translated to the viewers. So if this was cathartic for the people who were making it, I hope that that feeling that they all experienced can somehow be communicated, through the screen. Coming
from a theatrical background, you've made films with dance before as well. Like, I'm just so curious, like, for you, as an artist, as a filmmaker, like, what kind of inspires you, and what kind of next kind of experiences do you want to take us in?
So the goal for me has always been non-naturalistic worlds, supernatural worlds, surreal worlds, and dance was kind of a what felt at first like a sidestep, and only as I've continued to make work felt pretty essential to the way that I want to enter. Speculative world. Speculative is a word that's used more for fiction, like speculative fiction, but I like using it for film too, because using the body as a foundation for storytelling feels so surreal. And if dance is the portal into a surreal world, or if aliens are the portal into a surreal world, those both feel like very, I mean, dance is obviously physical, but even, you know, to introduce any world using physical language rather than the sort of intellectual entry point that I think we're used to is something that really fascinates me. So I love anything that's not set in our world as we experience it on a day-to-day basis, because I think that we can get we can explore deeper channels of the universe.
Yeah, absolutely.
By looking a little bit beyond what we're experiencing at all times.
Well, our bodies are just amazing emotional instruments, you know what I mean? And we can get so much information from experience, like watching your film is you know, I was like trying to watch it and think, well, what does this moment mean? What does this part mean? You know, and I love being challenged as an audience member as well as a filmmaker. So what is next for you? What next are you working on?
Well, I have a short film called Next Time that is a sci-fi road trip film that has also been making its
journeys around the festival world. And then I'm also working on a feature sci-fi film about video game addicted teenagers. That's been
something going on too,
right?
Well.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm always drawn to these are, you know, we're having these surreal experiences all the time. There's all of this. There's a whole other world going on in all of our brains and in our dreams that we're not necessarily telling stories about. So
that's so true.
Well,
I'm looking forward to the next world you take us into next, like whatever it may be. I love it. I love your artistic vision. It's really cool.
Thank you.
But for you as an artist, just to finalize on, for our wonderful artistic filmmaking audience, is there anything that kind of like channels you in how you go about as a filmmaker, as an artist, that you could share with the audience?
I can only think of it. I'm trying to. I don't know. There have been so many things that have been told to me or that have resonated with me in a macro sense, but I'm trying to think moment to moment these days of like what is the next thing that makes, what is the next thing that makes sense, and just to be very present. I think we can get very lost in the macro, you know, the narrativizing of our own lives. And I think just being open and aware to what's right in front of you.
I love that
it gives you more information to work with, to make work out of, you know, and then you can go and sit and mine through everything you experience. But I mean, all our experience is all we have to work with at any given moment. And I don't know, you already have all of the tools that you need to make whatever project you're going to make at any given moment.
We're always dwelling on the past and thinking too much in the future. We're never really in the present, staying moment to moment. So you're absolutely right. No, I love that. We could all do that better as well as human beings. So, well, listen, Talia, thank you so much. Thank you for Isolations. Keep bringing more of your wonderful imagination to us in film, and we really appreciate you. Welcome to the New Filmmakers family.
Thank you so much.